Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the One Piece Sydney Regionals. I'm joined with Kevin. Kevin, how are you this morning?
I'm very good, excited for day One Piece.
It is good. We do have the top cut from yesterday's event, and let's have a quick look at the bracket. All right, so in first place yesterday, we had Hubert Tanaya. Congratulations, Hubert. Being able to go 9-0 is an extremely impressive feat, and as such, we've decided to feature him on the stream match today. So round one, we will have the first versus 16th seed, UP Luffy versus GP. Let's get right onto that table. So we saw this matchup yesterday. Kevin, what is your initial thoughts on how this is going to go?
Very much, Hubert is the highest. He does have I would say a distinct advantage going into this game. Generally, you do want to go first in this matchup. Trying to hit the ramp immediately, get into that end game state as you do as blue-purple before the green-purple can flood the board, get these monster attacks out, and start swinging for 7, 8, multiple times a turn, and still have a Don to progress the board state. So I think Hubert will be looking to get these Rem cards out, get the Zoro on 3 if he runs it in his list, and then quickly get up to that 8 Don breakpoint, start looking at his cards, and then can slowly stabilize the game from there. One of the key points is we probably won't see him swinging it all into the green-purple Luffy at all throughout the game. Just a bit of a starve strat. Just go, okay, whatever you get off of your searches and whatever you get off this initial draw is all you're playing the game with until I have a board established.
For sure. And we did see Nick on stream yesterday being able to very masterfully use GP Luffy as well as all of his resources to maintain a hand size even when he was getting starved yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see how he's able to adapt to UP Luffy, which uses a similar starve strategy, but is able to play a lot bigger bodies than the Lucci game we had on stream.
Yeah, 100%. We do see here from Nicholas's initial hand, doesn't seem to have much going, just a couple counters, a couple searches, but off that first search, he did find one of the key pieces, which is this Sanji pudding. Being able to get that down and then being able to hopefully go either back-to-back with more searches, like the Zoro Jury he's now searching, or even the Rush Luffy the turn after. These are all the key pieces he needs to find over the next couple of turns to have a chance at successfully pushing through the wall that is blue-purple Luffy once it gets going.
For sure. We do see Hubert come down with the Ramp Zojura, and as we expected, Hubert deciding that starving is the best way to play this matchup. He doesn't want to give Nick any extra cards in hand to be able to defend his board in the mid-game. Zojura getting dropped down, looking at the top 5 cards of the deck for that Sanji and Pudding.
Yep, so we do see it. We'll most likely see him grabbing the Sanji Pudding here, unless he wants to potentially grab the Zoro, another Zoro Juro, just go, okay, well, next turn I go Sanji Pudding, get on my Dom back. I'll get the 3 Dom back, so I won't have enough to play another Zoro Juro, but maybe I just need more searches to find more cards throughout the turns. So we do see the second Sanji Pudding grabbed. Generally, with no stage on the field, it's actually very easy for blue-purple to remove that via the Big Mom or the God Thread. So grabbing a second one is always good in this case. If you have the stage up, maybe you go, oh, I don't need the second one quite yet. But in this case, definitely just playing on the safer side of I want these guaranteed. I want the power that is my deck to be online. And we do see Hubert here coming through with the Bond Clay, ramping 1 active, using those 3 Don to then ramp again with Gear 2, paying 3 for that. And he is now already at 8 Don. So 8 Don on turn 3. Going into his next turn, he will now get that leader effect and can start filtering his deck and drawing 2 cards a turn.
For sure, and this is like the insane part about Blue-Purple Luffy, right? This is what everyone's talking about, the high roll potential behind it. Being able to triple ramp as Hubert has done, getting that super early Sanji combo. If Hubert has that category in his top 5 cards as well as the Sanji in his hand, he is in a very comfortable position for the remainder of this game. And that's amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That just kind of shows what Triple Ramp can do, as well as he's now starting to draw 2 cards a turn for the rest of the game. Nicholas still playing on curve, finding that Sanji pudding, playing it down, using his leader effect to essentially have a bunch of Don in active. being 3 this turn.
Yep, so we do see the first leader effect coming. The 6K base is nice, kind of to match that blue-purple Luffy's leader. So you will see the pokes start coming through. The Zoroark will most likely be removed, probably from the other Zoroark on board. We'll see the most likely efficient trades coming through. And just most likely, it'd be interesting to see what he does with the main Don. Whether he leaves some up for defense, wanting to defend the board if he has the gum in hand, will probably just either play the Nico Robin or for ramping, or just playing a couple more searches, just saying, I need to filter my hand a little bit more, try and find these like backup plays for next turn.
For sure, and one of the big tough choices that Nick has to make is where am I swinging? Swing 4 into the Zoroark with the Nami, basically saying I have to clear this Zoroark, because if I don't, Hubert's able to play Sanji plus 9 cost Big Mom and then get that extra Don back from the Zoroark, so he still has 10 Don, which means after Gum Gum Giant, he's able to stay on 8 for his leader effect. But Nick also wants to get the swings into leader to get cards out of Hubert's hand, so he didn't want to sacrifice one of his 6K swings into the 4K body.
Yep, so we do see the first 6 cost Luffy added into Nicholas's hand. He didn't have it before. It's huge. I think it's very, very fortunately found that off the top deck, but he has a lot of options next turn. He can go Luffy Taro into the second Sanji Pudding. If this one doesn't get removed, he then has 2 on board. Effectively, leader effect becomes free at that point every turn, and you get to play with 4 extra Don, which is huge, especially into this blue-purple deck where you need all of this Don pressure you can apply to their leader as they start to just sculpt and build this massive hand. And it was an interesting point that the Zoroark was not swung this turn by Nicholas into Hubert. Just saying, I don't think the 1K count I'm getting out of your hand is worth losing this long-term body on the board. I'd rather keep this on there and put some pressure behind it and just go wide and force you to either swing into my Nami and clear it, or swing into my life if you really want to start attacking somewhere.
All right, we see this first Charlotte Linlin come down, help being able to stabilize for Hubert, removing the Zoroark and going up to 4 life, which is kind of insane for a blue-purple Luffy to already be on such high life.
Yeah, correct. So because he did not have the category out, he is back down to 9 Don. So if he does use the Gum Gum Giant this turn, he will go down to 7 and lose that leader effect at the start of next turn. But by being a 4 life and looking at Nicholas' board, he goes, even if you swing twice, I'm going to take both hits, comfortably go back down to 2, and then still have my leader effect and be in a great position from there. Keeping the 1-up as an insurance policy against some kind of rush Luffy coming down is always great. We do see the Luffy Taro come down, most likely the second Sanji Pudding, and then this will start the... Essentially, both decks have now established what they want in the game. Hubert was able to reach this endgame state, start drawing really quickly off the triple ram, and now Nicholas has these 2 Sanji Puddings out, effectively untapping 4 Don every turn for no cost, meaning I get to either swing with more Don every turn, or I get to play a Zoroark out for free every turn, effectively. So I think this is shaping up to be a very interesting game where both decks have effectively gotten to do what they want, and we can see the full true power matchup of these 2 decks now.
Yeah, for sure. It will be really cool to see. However, this is definitely a matchup where GP Luffy has to take the aggression, so it will be interesting to see whether Nick has a way to circumnavigate the stabilization Hubert has already seen, or whether this 9 cost Big Mom is kind of all Hubert has, because he only has 3 cards in hand, and that's not very many. Obviously, he has no cards in rest mode, so it's not like Nicholas can kind of punish that by swinging into bodies to make it smaller, but it is still something worthy to know. It might mean he does not have many big bodies left.
Yeah. It is interesting to see that he is deciding to swing with this Sanji Pudding here, saying, well, my hand is actually at a decent size now. And I'm happy to defend this Sanji Pudding. I just need to start putting pressure on. I'm never going to really win the game from this point.
And that's a gravity blade trigger from life. Being able to bottom deck one of your opponents a 5 or less. Nick wanting to go, all right, I'm going to protect the active one because the other ones are going to be swung into. But Hubert, who was able to stack his life with his leader effect last turn, choosing to put that grav blade into life to be able to remove a Sanji Pudding, which is a very heads-up play, and probably one of the reasons he played 9-1. For all we know, he had that category in hand. But Hubert thinking ahead, going, you know what? This 9-1's actually 2 removal because I get to put that Grav Blade into life.
Yeah, 100%. So did see it was very smart from Nicholas here to do buff the one that wasn't going to swing, saying that, okay, at least this one should be safe from all kinds of removal now, because you kind of expect the one in rest mode to get swung into. You're going to lose anyway. Might as well give the protection to the one that won't be able to be swung into. So if we didn't see that effect come through, we could definitely, the active one would have been bombed as well, and Nicholas would have been in a very rough position from there. So I think sequencing his turn correctly is definitely still kept him in this, even with the Hubert able to stack that trigger into his life.
For sure. And if you look at it one way, Hubert still doesn't want to swing at life, right? So that Sanji Pudding may have actually been a really nice target just to swing into.
Yeah, 100%. It is. Yeah. Yeah, you make a very good point. We do see here just Hubert thinking about the top 5 stacking, what he wants to grab, how he wants to stack the rest of it, and where it's going to go, whether it goes to the top or the bottom. It is a very good feeling when your opponent, blue purple, does bottom deck your cards. You know, it means they're going blind, and it gives you a good feeling of, okay, I have a chance, when they don't know what's coming next.
For sure, Hubert deciding to play down this 8-cost category that we talked about being such a useful card. And the big thing is, because Hubert's hand is so small, being able to block a swing to keep his hand size, like get a free block off, is super valuable. But he has to be super smart about when to use it. If he uses it too early in his turn, Nicholas is just going to use that as an opportunity to rip Hubert's hand down to shreds by swinging into it with the rest of his board.
Yeah, 100%. You always have to be worried about Gamma Knife. A lot of this is an open deck list format. You understand, okay, my opponent's running Gamma Knife. There's always a chance if I rest something, it becomes an easy target for Gamma Knife. Swing in for even with the Nami, it's just like, okay, I can now poke, and it's just always going to affect, like, removing something that large for such little investment just feels huge, because then everything else just becomes harder from there for you. So it will be interesting to see at what point Hubert does choose to block and which attack does comes through. I most likely expect to see Nicholas playing the Secret Rare this turn, just going, okay, you have 3 cards in hand. I've got a decent enough board where I think this is the turn I can start pushing through some damage and forcing you to have cards in your hand that can help you out from the situation. Because if Hubert just only has 3 cards in hand, it could just be minimal counter, and his stack could just be not that great for this turn. You just have to try and take advantage of that.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the really cool things about this position is that 6-cost Secret Rare Luffy takes a life. And when you kind of get starved, you're super happy to take that life off the Luffy to restand it, right? It's not like a negative thing, which it is against most matchups. So it'll be very interesting to see if Nicholas does decide to play it down. Hubert taking the life, going down to 2 life and 4 cards in hand. As we said, not wanting to get that free block off with Katakuri, because it just means it will most likely be removed, even if Nicholas doesn't have the Gamma Knife. Simply swinging like 10 into it with Luffy Taro, maybe 10 into it with Leader, is going to rip that hand to shred or force Hubert to lose the Katakuri.
Yeah, 100%. So we do see the Sanji Pudding coming down instead. We still could see this Luffy this turn, just with Leader Effect being able to untap 4, effectively going from this 4 back up to 8. We can actually see the full effect still coming through. Do see the poke coming through first. Just Hubert Nicholas wanting to draw the card first off of that Sanji Pudding, see if it changed any of his lines. But still just poking through, wanting to get these cards out of hand, or at least forcing the cycle of this Gum Gum Giant out. Because eventually they will run out. If you can keep on putting the pressure on, but you can only run 4 copies of a card in a deck, eventually the Gum Gum Giants all have to be gone, and then everything becomes a lot easier.
For sure. And one of the really cool things that we see Nicholas do, and what he is very, very good at, is being able to play GP Luffy on such high Don amounts. He really loves this 3-cost Frankie that is able to get him essentially 2 Don. 1 when he plays it, and 1 when attacking, which, if it's not a target to be removed by Hubert, because obviously the Sanji Pudding is a much greater threat, as well as the Luffy Taros, that's an extra Don that Nick gets back every turn. So when he Don minuses with Leader, he doesn't get punished. And we see that Gamma Knife go down, being able to minus that Katakuri. And now we get to see the Frankie swing into the Katakuri, giving us that extra Don.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we do see the punish of this early block. Huber going, okay, well, this is your last big attack in my lead for this turn. You got a lot done. I'm expecting you to kind of just like replenish your board, maybe refill your hand. So I'm going to block and be like, okay, it's fine. And so we do see the Gamma Knife come down, minusing the power of that. And we do see the Luffy come down as well, gaining with that rush, allowing to swing 7k into the 4k of the Katakuri. And it does go down.
For sure, and Hubert not having a Katakuri means his Gum Gum Giants for the rest of the game are a lot more costly because you don't get the leader draw, which is something crazy to think about. If Hubert leaves enough Don open, he can do something like Gum Gum Giant alongside Thunder Bagua to go back up to the right amount of Don, but it is a difficult thing to do because you want to be playing bodies. He wants to be playing the Sanji, he wants to be playing more Katakuris out, he wants to be playing more Big Mums out to heal Nick with a really wide board, doing a really good job at applying the right amount of pressure. And he still has 6 cards in hand.
That's crazy.
That's the crazy thing we saw about him in the Lucci matchup, is his hand size was always big, and he still has 5 life, right?
Yes.
He's gained a life, right?
Yeah.
And he hasn't had any of those, access to any of those cards. You start with 5 cards in hand. He has 6 after playing a bunch. He's drawn cards somehow, like gone plus in hand size, which is crazy to think about when you still have to play cards down.
Yeah, for sure, that's crazy. We will see Hubert did hit the OG combo of this deck. We will probably see the Sanji into Lin Lin this turn, stacking that Lin Lin in the second from the top. So grabbing the Sanji, stacking a card you want to draw for turn on top, and then making sure the next card of the deck is that Lin Lin. So we will see 2 more big bodies come down on Hubert's side, plus that gaining of life, and potentially putting either the Sanji pudding or the Luffy into life. It'd be an interesting choice. I think neither of them feel great from Hubert's perspective. You're like, I don't want you to have like effectively a free leader effect, but I also don't want you to have this Luffy which could potentially swing into me and like win you the game next turn. So yeah, we do see the choice of the Luffy going to life state. Okay, sure, if you've still got this Don, I'm going to force you to have another one, essentially. If you have the second one, it's not going to be a fun position for me, but at least you have to have it, and you don't already have it on board, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. 2 Sanji puddings sticking around is pretty insane because both of them get a Don back each. So Nick is working with 14 Don this turn.
Yes.
Right, we're meant to be playing the game with 10 Don, but Nick's like, nah, I want a couple extra Don, using lead effect, using the Sanji pudding, getting a couple cards. We see the Amerigo come down just to cycle through. Nick not wanting dead cards in hand. He knows he needs to have counter in his hand. He knows he needs to keep developing bodies. Looks like we see another 6-cost Luffy in those top 5, eyeing it off very seriously, going, is this the turn I want to apply pressure? Because worst case, I get the Gum Gum Giant out of Hubert's hand, and he doesn't get to stack his deck next turn, which is a pretty strong play, and it looks like what Nick wants to go for. Hubert does have the potential, though, to still be able to Gum Gum Giant and go back to 8 Don at the start of his next turn, because a lot of these purple cards, like Thunder Bagua, like God Thread, have a really nice trigger, which just says, get a Don. So if Hubert was able to stack something like this Thunder Bagua to the top card of his life, he's able to then manipulate that to become a draw at the start of his next turn.
Yeah, 100%. We did see that in the top 5. I wasn't sure where that ended up in the deck, so it'll be interesting to see where that is in the stack. We do see the leader effect come through from Nicholas here, just making this leader a 6k, wanting to get that full effect out before he thinks about where he wants to attach this Don. Might as well just use the effect now and then be able to think through all the lines.
For sure. He probably wants to swing a couple of small ones first and then get a couple of big Luffy swings towards the end. His hand is pretty small, only 3 cards, so getting that life back is actually a bonus, right? It is something he wants to do, right? So he wants to use leader effect, sorry, not leader effect. He wants to use the Sigurez Luffy effect this turn, but he also has 2 Gum Gum Giants in hand, so he probably wants to leave a couple Don active so he can protect 1 or 2 bodies from Hubert's massive board of attacks.
Yeah, 100%. In this specific area, I think when you're facing any kind of purple Luffy deck where they have Don open for this Gum Gum, and they have a smaller hand size. You always want to poke smaller with these cards first, because generally, if they have a small hand size, they're probably going to want to take a couple life just to make sure that what they discard off this Gum Gum Giant is actually a dead card or something they don't need. So they're more likely to take the first hits anyway. So it's like, well, if they're going to take it, I might as well just push my small attacks at first. Yes, you're giving them more options, but they're guaranteed hits for these like small Don investments, and then you can make these other attacks larger.
For sure. As you can see that Nick kind of forgot 2 Don to the side for his Luffy effect, seeing if he wants to minus 2 Don. Yeah. Yep. So he's using that effect, returning them to the Don deck, taking the life to re-stand this 6-cost Luffy. Hubert taking the life, no trigger, so we don't see some Thunder Bagua shenanigans off of the stack. However, there is still two random life. We have no clue what they are. So it could still happen. We don't know. Hubert doesn't know. Nick doesn't know. We'll find out soon, though.
Yes. So yeah, I expected to see a lot more 8 swings coming through. The threat is if I go all out here and turn all my cards sideways, all Hubert's doing next turn is swinging into my board, and I have to be sure that I can keep enough alive to then end the game the turn after. So it's very much a game of chicken right now of what am I swinging with? How many times do I really want to swing? Is this Luffy actually just worth to keep in active mode? Because if I use this Merry-Go, it's not being removed. Unless he finds if he finds a Red Rock to remove it, then he can. But then he's not doing anything else for a turn. He's using most of his Don. He's not playing another big body out. So I'm actually kind of okay with that. But we do see the second swing coming through. Just put on the pressure going, okay, you eventually have to give me cards. If you use Gum Gum Giant, you're not using leader effect next turn and putting him in the awkward position of what's more important to you, going down to 0 life and being able to use leader effect, or you stay at 1 life and kind of just drawing 1 card for turn and becoming a vanilla lead for a turn, essentially.
For sure. Hubert taking the life. I think he knows he needs that Gum Gum Giant to... he needs that 8 Don to do much next turn. We see just the gear to come down, which gives a plus 3k. So Hubert going, no, I'm not able to minus Don this turn. I'll counter out of these 2 8k swings and use my leader effect to look at top 5 to try get some more counter, or ideally probably another 9 mum. Nick not protecting anything with Merry-Go. Bit surprising he doesn't want to protect his 6-cost Rush Luffy here. Maybe just a small thing that he forgot to do. However, I think at the end of the day, Nick kind of knows I can only protect through 1 swing, which means whichever card Hubert wants to attack into is definitely dying, and it's no point protecting a Sanji Pudding because he can just 9-mum the other Sanji Pudding.
Yeah.
So Nick probably going, look, there's not much actual reason to do this, so I'm just not going to do it. Hubert, however, may have the chance to punish with a Grav Blade, but also if you're still on 0... If Hubert's on 0 life, he probably just loses.
Yeah, correct. At this point, he's at the Nicholas series at 10 Don, which is kind of weird enough for this GP deck. Doesn't often operate at this 10 Don level, but he will make it. They go back down to 8 after this Gum Gum Giant, go back up to 8 the next turn.
Drawing 2 Gum Gum Giants off his Gum Gum Giant. I mean, look, it's kind of fine. Nick obviously wanting to protect some bodies this turn, and being able to do so. He does have a 2 and a 1. He did pretty much have to draw exactly a 2 and a 1 off that Gum Gum Giant to be able to protect 2 bodies. So it doesn't change too much at the end of the day. It just gives Nick more options at the for the next couple turns. But I'm sure he wanted to keep that Usohachi in his hand in case a Nami blocker comes down.
Yeah, 100%. So might as well, if you're going to defend one, you might as well just defend the first one. Essentially, you're saying, okay, this is like a blocker for all of my cards, but if you really want to do this one, I might as well defend this one, and then you're just always going to keep on attacking it. So it will be interesting to see if a big guard does come out. Effectively, your board's kind of safe. If you wants to play a 9-cost, and it isn't a Lin, it's very scary to then try and swing this Luffy into any cards on the board.
For sure, we see another 9k swing come down. Hubert has 7 Don remaining. It looks like we are going to probably see a 5-cost Nami blocker come down. Nick theoretically can punish the player with an Usohachi, but because he didn't draw any 2Ks off of the Gum Gum Giant, or even for that fact, 2 1Ks, he was unable to hold it in hand to go for game this turn. That being said, he could still top deck one. I don't think we saw many of them in the discard pile. There's a heap of searches in the deck for GP, so there are a bunch of different options Nick has, but he could also just swing with all his cards, and maybe that's still close to enough.
Yeah, correct. So Hubert having a bottom deck 2 dead cards there was a Narcos Mihawk and something else I didn't catch. But essentially, just trying to filter his hand out, just trying to get as much counter as he can right now. Still has one big bomb in hand, has a couple Gum Gums. If he does have to use both of his Don for these Gum Gum Giants, it will mean he won't get to use lead effect. But if he has a Gear 2 and a Gum Gum, that's perfect. He goes down to that 8 and then still gets the full effect. I think Hubert's kind of just in the survival mode of, if I survive the next couple turns, if I survive this turn and play a big mum, I'm probably back in the driver's seat of this game, and I can then slowly start chipping away Nick's life, and probably look at winning the game in 2 to 3 turns.
Yeah, for sure. And that big one you're talking about is in Hubert's hand. So he has the ability to go for it going into his next turn. So Nick thinking, maybe I could, if I've got another body in hand, I don't know what he drew for turn. He drew Luffy Taro. It's not a body that's really going to be super valuable. There's a potential for Nick going, I'm just going to play one body, use my lead effect, get a bunch of Don back and bash everything with my leader, leave everything inactive and go for game next turn, hopefully forcing the Nami blocker out. But there's also a decent enough chance that that won't be enough to end this game into the next turn if Hubert has any sort of other blocker, any sort of 9 mum, and he's got another top 5 cards to look at to find those cards if they aren't in his hand at the moment. So Nick probably going, that's not really an option. This is probably it. I probably have to go for game now. Probably a little bit annoyed that he didn't get those counter off the Gum Gum Giant, but I guess it's pretty likely considering GP Luffy is one of the decks with the highest amount of non-counter cards. You have the 4 Sanji Puddings, you normally have like 3 Luffy Taros, 3 Secret Rares, we're already up to 10, 4 Marigos, 14, 4 Zoro Juros, up to 18, as well as Gum Gum Giants themselves, up to 22. Any extra events like Radio Knife, Gamma Knife, Electric Luna. A lot of the times, half of these GP decks can be no counter cards. Oh, and I didn't even mention the 1-cost Searcher event. So I think Nick is probably, like, just looking at all the cards he's probably running more than 50% of no counter cards, which is kind of crazy to think about how he always has a decent amount of counter, because he's so good at making sure he uses all the non-counter Searcher effects first before even playing cards like Nami.
Yeah, 100%. It's a very interesting to see. I'm learning a lot watching this and seeing how you can just kind of navigate these hands and what the decisions are, what to keep and what cards to play. I've definitely watching all these searches come down where in spots you kind of normally would just go, I'm just going to swing and put some more damage behind me. He's like, Nicholas knows it's not really worth it. The searching is way more beneficial to my long-term game plan. And so I think it's been great. So we do see the Luffy Taro coming down, just going, okay, I just need to use some of this Don. My leader is kind of useless if I haven't used the Don for the turn. So I might as well just do that first. It's just a 7-cost 8k vanilla. Feels very rough. But it also just threatens another body next turn. So I was like, you don't want to turn, or if you want to turn all your bodies sideways, you always need something active just so you don't always, just so a blocker plus clearing your board doesn't kind of end your turn on the clapback.
For sure. Very interesting what Nick did there. I haven't no clue what the reasoning is, but I'm sure there's something I'm not thinking about. He used Luffy Taro's at Don -1 to get an extra Don into his Don deck, and then use leader effect to Don -2 again. So he chose to have 1 extra card in his Don deck instead of having 9 Don. He wanted to have 8 Don. I'm not sure what the reasoning for it was, but very curious to ask after the game. I'm sure there is, like, maybe the Marigo was a consideration depending on what Hubert did. Maybe there's other cards that have, if you have it less on the opponent, going for a Sanji Pudding next turn if he draws it into it, stuff like that to get the draw is things that Nick is probably thinking about. We're swinging 7 into the Sanji Pudding. Nick just going, you know what, I'm not defending this board. I'm going to lose it all if I do.
Yep.
He doesn't have enough swings to go for game, so I'm just going to take pretty much all of these 9. I'll take 9. He's got no more swings. If I survive, I can probably survive 1 more turn, so we'll just have to see how it goes. Hubert playing another Nami, 4-5, leaving 4 Don open for defense. And it's not just Gum Gum Giants he can use, even though Hubert just drew into one. It's Gum Gum Giants, it's Thunder Bagua, and it's Gear 2. The deck in total normally runs about 11 counter events, which means in situations like this, once you already have that big board established, sometimes you just slam Nami, leave a heaps of Don open, and tell your opponent, sure, I have no life. Sure, you can theoretically Uso Hachi me, but also you're not killing me.
Yeah, 100%. I've talked to a lot of these top players yesterday. Coming from my experience with the Blue Purple deck, I thought it was kind of like, oh, well, just slam more big bodies, win the game. But it turns out you don't really need this breakpoint of like 3, maybe 4 of these bodies. And it's actually more effective to go, okay, I play a blocker every turn. I then use the Don I don't need or I don't need to threaten to just swing bigger numbers into either their board or just start pushing to life. And go, okay, just try and win. I'm just searching for counter now. We don't need these big bodies anymore. They're not removing any of my bodies, so it's actually greedy to try and get a full board of 5Ks of blockers. Because then if you do need to play a block, you're like, oh, I now have to replace one of these 9 costs. And there's always that threat of like losing the game to some rush play. So very, very heads up to go, okay, I'm not going to be greedy. I've got the 3. This was enough to help me win the game over 2 to 3 turns. I'm just going to play a Nami, filter my hand, get all this counter to survive, and then just go, okay, you have to show me something. Otherwise, you're on a clock now. I've established the end game that I am happy with, and you have to do something about it.
For sure, we did see Nicholas top deck that Uso Hachi, so now he has the decision to make. Am I going for another turn? Am I trying my best to defend here, which he definitely can do with that double Gum Gum Giant in hand plus 2 2Ks? Or is he going, you know what, even if I do defend this board, I'm not killing him next turn, so I just got to slam the Uso Hachi? Using the Merry-Go kind of seems like he wants to go for the defense route or trying to like get another body. Maybe he was really hoping to get a Gear 2 Luffy down to be able to swing multiple times, which probably was exactly what he was looking for. However, unable to find it. So now he has to think, is the Uso Hachi worth it? Seems like he's separating his Don. Got 3 there at the bottom. Probably heavily considering the Uso Hachi, potentially also heavily considering that Sanji down as a blocker, maybe just bashing big with leader. It is quite a tough spot to be in. He is most likely surviving Hubert's next turn, but that's it, right? The game's over if Hubert gets 2 more turns. So Nicholas having to go, how can I win this game over the next 2 turns?
Yeah, 100%. So we do see the blocker come down because he does have 2 less Don than his opponent. It is now a 3 cost. I think he just also wants to use some of this Don before the leader effect, being able to -2 restand 2. So you do need the 4 active, but like essentially you need to use 4 Don before you can use your leader effect to its full potential. So just playing this out, going, okay, well, I needed to play the Merry-Go anyway. I wanted to use it, and so effectively it's like, okay, well, I might as well use the other 3, use leader effect, and then have a little bit of defense. So now I can probably go more aggressive, leave the 1 or 2 up for the Gum Gum Giant, and go, I've got an insurance policy of I shouldn't die next turn now, hopefully.
For sure. We see the Gum Gum Giant come down. Hubert very happy he has another one, able to draw 2 more cards, one of them being Nami, so at least he's got that extra 1K. Going, all right, well, that Nami is there. He's probably not dying to, what can I do, a 8K swing on leader if I Uso Hachi, so I'm just going to attach 4 Don, or 5, is that 4 Don, and swing 10. We'll see the block come down from the Nami. Hubert going, all right, let me draw another 2 cards to start this turn. There is another Big Mom in there. There is a Sanji. He might go for a Sanji Big Mom line just to get 2 more bodies. Not like super ideal in terms of how many cards.
No, I think we could potentially see a bottom deck here if he doesn't think that I don't need these bodies anymore. And so we do see the bottom deck come out. Just going, I'd rather just kind of like blind draw and hopefully get more counter and just play this Nami from my hand and go, okay, I'm going to do something I've done every turn. I'm going to poke into your rest of my characters. The rest will go into your leader now, trying to slowly end the game. And then from there, I'm going to go Nami, filter out, draw 3 fresh cards, put 2 dead cards to the bottom and go do something again.
Yeah, going to be completely honest, I forgot he drew the Nami off the Gum Gum Giant last turn. I was kind of thinking maybe he needs his 9 mum to heal and not just die to like a, 15, 16K all in. But even then, looking at Hubert's hand, he might get out of that.
Yeah,
he might get out of just a big swing, everything on one character. We see the 10K swing come down. I assume it's into Luffy Taro. Yep, Luffy Taro goes down. 9K swing into life. Another 9 to come following this. We might see the Gum Gum Giant come down if Nick wants to try and survive another 2 turns, but he's like, nah, it's not happening. Maybe if he swings one more time, I get that gear 2 and I can try for it, but no, Hubert's like, nah, I swung 1 into the Luffy Taro for a reason. I'm not letting you get that gear 2 back. Hubert going to bot deck 2 cards, or top deck 2 cards. Top deck's the Naimum. He's super certain he is going to live. He was more than happy to put a dead card on top to draw off of a gear 2, which is kind of crazy to think about, but I guess he didn't want to get rid of his last Naimum because we saw him bottom deck the other ones just in case he needs to survive another turn.
Yeah, for sure. I also think there's kind of like a strategy of I want to guarantee grab a card off of my top deck 5 search as well. When you go through a lot of your deck, you can kind of get to the point where it's like, oh, a lot of the cards, there is a chance I actually whiff off the top 5 search because you can only grab these Straw Hat Crew cards. So there is a potentially he's went, okay, I'm going to put this big one, which I don't mind if this is my option, this is my option, plus a card that is searchable back on the top and go, at least I guarantee can grab something, which I can then discard later on if I need from either another Nami or something else. Just guaranteeing that top 5 so you don't whiff. I think whiffing is kind of like the worst thing this deck can do. And then you kind of just bottom deck and go, okay, I pray I draw into something now.
For sure. Nick probably looking at this board state going, I have the Robin, so I probably have a decent chance of surviving another turn if I really want to, because Blue Purple Luffy doesn't have much answer to chum blockers at the moment. Hubert potentially running that one of Nami promo, which is able to bounce a 3 or less, so that could be cool to see come down potentially, but we'll wait to see what happens and whether Nicholas does end up playing the Nico Robin as well this turn, or whether he wants to go for something like a Sanji so it can't be rested by an opposing Usohachi.
Yeah, so we do see the minus come, the Merigo going into rest mode, just making it 6k. We'll be swinging for 8k, so yeah, another Gum Gum Giant discarding the God Thread.
And just drawing the 2 cards we put back on top. So Hubert must be happy with it, and that's just a pass coming down from Nicholas looking at top 5. Looks like he sees potentially both the Nami and the Usohachi, going for the Usohachi, which can't rest anything. The Nami can't pick anything, can't bounce anything either. So we see this come down, the draw for turn. That Nami blocker survived though, so Hubert may be going, you know what, maybe I can go for game here. I'm just going to swing my 9s.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason not to be honest. You might as well there's no point starving you already at this point where it's like, okay, we'll just swing. So discarding another Gum Gum Giant off that Gum Gum Giant, not leaving the 2 up, needing the full Don to then take advantage of. Maybe could potentially swung for 7 instead of the 8 with the leader, potentially just to keep that second one up. But maybe going, well, if I have to use both, I'm losing the game anyway because I just don't have enough Don to attach to win. So coming through with that, defending that, blocking that one, and we see the 2 life left. And it's kind of put Hubert in a spot of like, yeah, okay, go for it. Go if you swing that blocker, you don't win the game. Can you survive now, like on the swing back? So always the mental games of you kind of either have to go for it or not.
Hubert's probably looking at his hand, which looks like a literal book going, I can survive, right? You're not killing me. Like, you can have all the counter world, you can survive this turn, but with the amount of Don you have, you're not surviving. And we see the 11k from the Nami come down, and Hubert is able to get the game 1 victory. Congratulations. We will get into game 2 very quickly.
Yeah, sure. So what do we learn from that game, Max?
Look, I think if Blue Purple Luffy is able to survive, it gets quite rough. We might try get these players' deck lists up on the stream while they shuffle up and get ready for game 2. Hubert with a couple of spicy one-offs in those 2k lines, looking at that 1 cost Nami. See if that comes up in game 2 to bounce a blocker.
Yeah, 100%. The 1 cost Nami being a 2k is like, you can just kind of include any of these 2Ks for fun in the deck. As long as it's searchable and it's blue and purple, why not? You can put whatever mix you like in there. So we do see the 1 cost Nami come in. If you have 3 or less cards in hand, then you can bounce a 3 or less to your opponent's hand.
Which honestly won't come up too much, but it's a cool one of to include. We see that one of Drakekill Mihawk as well being able to bottom deck a Sanji Pudding if it has been protected, which is really cool. See all the different Ram cards in Gear 2, God Thread, Bond Clay, and Zoro, as well as Thunder Bagua against really aggressive decks. Hubert only running 2 Sanji 2K blockers, 1 Frankie and 1 Nami are the other 2Ks he's running, so 8 in total. Having a quick look at Nick's deck as well. See, GP Luffy is quite a standard deck, and it'll be interesting to see how many of those are dead cards that we did do. But we might look at that if we get into a Game 3, because these players are ready and rolling for Game 2, with Hubert winning Game 1. Nick gets to decide whether to go first or second, and he has obviously chosen first, because what happened last game, that triple ramp, that is scary for anyone to deal with on the best of days. Imagine dealing with it in Top Cut, playing for that serial ace, playing for that top 8 Sanji. Incredibly beautiful looking cards that both these players most definitely want.
No turn 1 play again from Nicholas there. Always very rough. No field, no searches, just passing on. Like, you, as the GP player, you just really need to be doing something every turn just to start building up this board and start building up this pressure. So instead of playing the Frankie, we do see this 8K swing come through, saying, no, this tempo of getting the Don is not worth it. I just need to put pressure on early. Well, I let you have time last game, and I'm just not going to let that happen this time.
For sure. Hubert thinking whether to take this trigger. Is this one of the purple triggers that we were talking about? And he's just doing the math. If I do this, do I get to 8 on like a turn earlier? He's just thinking, all right, if I do this, he must have a couple ramp cards in hand to be thinking this seriously about it. He's just making sure that this is not the reason he screws up. We're going, all right, am I able to get enough, or do I get punished for going for ramp instead of playing something like a Nami blocker on a later turn? Or is he just going to slam a Nami blocker now because this trigger is ramping, but he's deciding not to take? He's like, nope, we'll stick the course, we'll do what is optimal. And Hubert probably playing a ramp card, playing that gear to...
Yeah, we did see it was the Thunderbug he was considering on having that ramping effect. It is very powerful, though, to have that in hand, especially against what isn't really considered an aggro deck, but if you do have a chance to keep that 2 open, maybe on the next turn when you're on that 7 Don, you're in that awkward spot where maybe it's like, okay, I have 5 for Nami, and I leave 2 open and just go, okay, I'm going to ramp again anyway, get up to that 8, and you kind of go, well, I can't swing now as GP, because if you go to 8, I'm activating your effect. So it's actually, I think it's a very heads-up play. Hubert doing the math of like, no, if I do this turn, if I do my next 7 Don turn this way, it actually just stops Nicholas' turn altogether, or he plays into what I want to do.
Yeah, for sure. He pretty much goes, all right. Ooh, we see the God Thread come down. This is one of the really good cards in this matchup for the UP or Luffy playing, being able to KO a 5 or less. Nicholas is probably kind of happy sitting back right now going, thank God I played a card that replaced itself instead of playing this Sanji Pudding, because if my Sanji Pudding got removed, I'd be in a bit of trouble looking at which cards I have left to play. But we do see the 7-cost Luffy Taro come down. Obviously, this is one of the better purple cards that has seen purple Luffy do really well in the past, and now is being played in green-purple to develop a board quite early against UP. And the great thing about this matchup with Sanji Pudding is because UP ramps, that Sanji Pudding pretty much always drawing you that card, which is cool to see. We see leader effect come down. We have 3 Don in active mode. The absolute high roll for GP would be Sanji Pudding into Luffy Taro, Sanji Pudding into Zoro, which is kind of crazy to see. However, Hubert would have stopped that anyway with the God Thread.
Yeah, 100%. So we do see the Marigo come down, just cycling that card out. We'll probably most likely see the protection for that Sanji Pudding, just meaning that he will, that it should, most of the time this is going to stick. Blue Purple going to 10 Don. They generally want to play Kata first before, although saying that Hubert didn't need last game, he was like, oh, it's fine, I'll get there without it. So we do see the Thunderbug ramping 1 in rest mode when used because he's at 2 or less life. So this does allow him, I think he just wanted to use it to counteract to stay at half life. I think it was more, well, you give me an option for God Thread, I will just use God Thread at this point. If I didn't need to use the God Thread, then I have a backup ramp where I don't have to extend using this God Thread now.
For sure, these top 5 cards don't look too pretty for Hubert. He has a 9-1, he has the Gum Gum Giant, he has a 2K, but we don't see any Sanji, so he has to have that 9-cost Sanji in hand if he wants that super early wide board, and he doesn't have the ultimate high roll of that 9-cost Mihawk. That would have been really cool to see it come down this early, just to remove that Sanji Pudding on curve, and Nicholas would have been in a real rough spot if that came down. But he also doesn't have the Katakuri in those top 5 cards, which means if he doesn't have Katakuri in hand, he's not playing it. We see the bottom deck come down. Hubert has something in his hand he is willing to play, which is always nice to see. We see this Katakuri come down, which we showcased so many times on stream yesterday and is the premier purple card at the moment. Blocker, end of turn, get a Don, restand itself, plus another Big Mom Pirates card. I don't know what more you want as a deck that likes to Don -3 pretty much over your turn and your opponent's turn quite consistently. Being able to get that 1 Don, it just makes your leader effect live all the time. And you just never have to worry. You never have to think, oh, is it worth it here to not leader effect? Is it not worth it here to leader effect? You just don't have to worry about that because Katakuri does it all for you. We see Luffy Taro coming down to play the Frankie. Pretty much means that Frankie got played for free because it replaced the Don that Luffy Taro minus, which is really cool. See the Sanji, the leader effect, untapping 2, Sanji putting, ramping that 1 Don back. Nick has quite a wide board and is definitely going to turn these cards sideways because there is no way for Hubert to punish considering he only has 2 swings, and one of them is the leader, which is not big enough to swing into any of these bodies without Don investment, which Hubert just can't give this early on because he needs to play more big bodies.
Yeah, 100%. It's very heads up to go, okay, theoretically, yes, you can clear my stuff, but you're not going to. I understand your game plan well enough, you say mine, that if you deviate from the game plan at this point, it's actually, there's a big enough detriment where I don't mind that you clear my board. You're actually hurting yourself by trying to think that you can do these things now. So we do see the Gum Gum Giant come down, just discarding, saying I don't need the second Kata, I can just draw some cards. Hoping to draw into some random cards that are useful. Taking the next life from the 7 hit, maybe an indication of, oh, maybe there aren't too many 2Ks, or I was maybe worried about the Gamma Knife again. So respecting the 2 opened on, going, I can't block this 8K and give you a 1 just yet. Because if this Gamma Knife does come down, I'm in a rough spot again.
For sure, that is a lot of counter cards in Hubert's top 5 there. It seems like he has the Gear 2, the Gum Gum, as well as the Thunder Bargua in at that top 5, which is kind of crazy as well as a 9 Gum. I think it's double Gear 2. That's a lot of defense in that hand. Yep. If he keeps it in his hand, it is very rough for him because he doesn't have many more bodies to play, but he also can't bottom deck them all, because that means he just doesn't have defense for pretty much the rest of the game. We see the AK swing come down into that Sanji pudding, just getting a cheeky 2K out of Nicholas's hand. We know Nick, we know he has cards in hand to defend these swings at the start of the game, and we see the 9-cost Sanji come down, playing that 9-cost Big Mom. This is the play for this deck, but we don't have anything we can realistically remove that is that valuable. Obviously, we're still going to get rid of the Frankie, right? We're not gonna leave it there. That's a Don Nick gets back every turn, and if Nick does have the Gamma Knife and we see a block come down, that's a 4 into a 3. That's another 2K out of Hubert's hand. We definitely want that removed. We get the Don back with the Katakuri as well as restanding it. So what do you think of this position at the moment? Who do you think's in the lead? Do you think Hubert is able to stabilize with this big board he has, or is Nick able to apply much pressure? And what do you think is his best lines for this turn?
And you asked a lot of questions.
I did.
You asked a lot of questions.
I'm just letting you rant now.
Yeah, that's fair. Essentially, I think it's actually very even. It's definitely favored for Nicholas right now. He is in the driver's seat. He did not have this much of a board last time, especially these large bodies. Yes, the Zoroduru can swing into leader, but having these 7K, 8K bases are just huge when this category is on board. It's like you don't really get these free blocks. The category shines where it goes, well, I'm just going to chump block something, and then if you want to clear it short, just defend anyway. It's easier. Like 8 is easier to defend than 6. Whereas if everything is 8 already, it's very rough. It's like, well, I kind of need to defend it, but if I ever turn this sideways too early, it's just going to, especially with a Gamma Knife potential, it's very hard to like find the correct time to block, which like actually gets you value versus just blocking, losing value, and then lose even more, or just getting none. So I think the one saving grace for Hubert right now is we still haven't seen that rush Luffy for Nicholas. If the rush Luffy came down this turn, I think he'd be in an amazing spot. He'd be swinging 7 and 8, 4 or 5 times his turn. He'd be putting on a lot of pressure. Hubert's hand would have been dramatically gone down. But I think we'll still see a lot of the attacks come through. Potentially not turning the Sanji putting sideways if he thinks he needs that to stay around. Just because there are a lot of attacks coming through back from Hubert, he's still not going to attack the leader. There's still a board to worry about. I don't want to give any more life. So it'll be interesting to see what Nicholas decides to swing with, where he puts his last 3 remaining Don. Mainly around whether Sanji Pudding is worth swinging with.
Yeah, for sure. Sanji Pudding's probably going to be the last swing that we see come down. Because as you're saying, all these other cards, they're 8k, right? If Hubert doesn't attach any Don, that's a 2k out of Nick's hand. That's another 2k out of Nick's hand. That's easy to defend. The Sanji Pudding's a little bit harder. However, he does have that one Gum Gum Giant, so he can use that to defend if he wants, but is probably a little bit inefficient. So you're very right. We might see the Sanji Pudding stay inactive if Nick thinks that the swings he is currently presenting is enough. It'll probably be 888 and then an 8k with leader. And I guess the big thing at the end of the turn is if we don't see the block from the Katakuri come down, Nick can only swing with one of the leader or the Sanji Pudding. It looks like we just see a 6k swing come down. We want to get a cheeky 1k out of Hubert's hand.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was Hubert kind of planning ahead with that stack. He stacked that Thunderbugger on life and went, okay, I'm going to put this in here so I can get 1 back active and eventually have 2 on defense for this turn. It gets like if Nicholas does hit essentially the perfect of what he wants to play with this Rush Luffy, I have another Don that I can use for another Gum Gum Giant if need be, or a Gear 2, which will most likely come down now. So I think that was a very smart play from Hubert where it's kind of like, well, why am I ramping? I'm going to be at 9. Well, it's like, no, I'm kind of untapping a Don in a way by giving up a life for a card I don't need. So I think that was very smart from Hubert to just get that little bit of extra survivability out from that turn. Nicholas missing that Rush Leafy meant he didn't exactly need it, but you'd rather plan for the worst and then have like an easier turn because of it as well.
For sure. We'll see the rest of these cards get bottom deck. There was a Sanji Katakuri play in the hand, in the top cards for Hubert if he wants it, but this is the exact same position he was in last game, and I'm sure this is where he's going to want to start going Nami plus counter events. Nami plus counter events.
Yes. It is a little bit scarier this time to do it, just because it is such a large board on Nicholas's side. If he does just go blocker up, there's still like 3 8k bodies on the board, which is very hard to clear. You're only swinging 8 into 8, 9 into 8. And then if you just kind of play this blocker and then leave all the Don up, it's very rough. So we do see the Don attachment come through, swinging for 12 into this 8, going, okay, you give me that Gum Gum plus 1. Otherwise, I'm going to be removing at least one of your 8k swings back into me.
For sure. Nick only has 3 cards in hand. Hubert going, all right, if you want to defend this, I'm making your hand small and you do not have a board going into next turn. Very heads up playing. We still have the ACOS Katakuri, which can swing into something, and it looks like we will see the Gum Gum Giant come down. Hopefully, Nicholas doesn't draw dead cards. That's probably what he's thinking of. He's like, oh, last time I Gum Gum Giant, I drew 2 dead cards, and now I've got 2 2Ks in hand. I really don't want to waste a 2K just to draw into some dead stuff, because that Usohachi is so very important. We see a non-dead and a dead, but it is the Sanji Pudding, which isn't too bad at the end of the day. And Hubert just going, you know what? I don't need Nami this turn. I have the Katakuri. Let's just go another 12, and let's just absolutely remove the Luffy Taro. I've got a Katakuri in active mode. That's my blocker for the turn. I've got a life, which is my second blocker for the turn. I have 2 Don open, which is basically my 3rd and 4th blocker for the turn, making it really rough for Nick to be able to apply enough pressure for lethal or for much of anything else. We see the Sanji Pudding come down as well as the Gum Gum Giant top deck. Definitely not bad, but I'm sure Nick is going, where are my Gear 2s?
Yeah, 100%. Where is this Luffy? Where is this Rush Luffy that I needed to play 3 turns ago to have it, to be able to close out this game and put the pressure down? Just every turn is going by. It's just the chances are slipping away. Hubert gets more and more stabilized. The cards in his hand just keep on growing back up. And if he finds like another Lin Lin or another Kata next turn, it's just getting more and more rough to then try and push through these damage.
For sure, and UP being able to play as much defense as it can definitely makes it rough. Nicholas probably wants that 2-player that Zoro drew in his hand down, which means his swings will be quite weak this turn. It'll be like 8, 8, 6, which, I mean, the 6 is probably getting blocked, and the 2 8s are probably eating events and not really getting much out of Hubert's hand, because that's 2 cards out of Hubert's hand, right? And Hubert then draws 2 cards per turn. And if you keep doing this, if you keep going through that cycle where you're only getting 2 cards out of their hand and then they draw 2 cards to start their turn, as well as you're losing your board, it's never putting you in a position to actually win the game. So one thing Nick might think of doing is potentially not attacking, going, maybe I can go for game next turn with everything, because he can only leave so many Don open, right? If he has like 5 events in hand, right, and but can only leave 2 Don open, that's 3 dead cards. So Nick kind of just planning through what he wants to do. Looks like he wants to swing with that Frankie. He doesn't really care if the Frankie's alive or not. It's just an extra Don to him. But right at the moment, it becomes a 6k swing, which gets a cheeky 1k out of his hand. Probably see another 6k swing come down from the leader. Potentially looking at 7. No, going for the 6. Probably leaving that 1 Don open for the Gum Gum Giant.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's an interesting thought of maybe I do just leave my Luffy Tyrants inactive and go, okay, if you're not going to swing, I can kind of judge your game plan as well. I can go, okay, if you're not swinging to my leader still, you're still trying to starve me, then maybe I could just have a couple turns to build a board. Whereas if I just keep everything standing for 1 turn, you kind of have to like do something about it. That does definitely get punished by the Charlotte Linlin, but I think at this point, a Linlin or all the blockers is kind of, it puts him in a rough position anyway. So we'll have to see what Hubert can do here. Didn't lose any life that turn. A couple cards from hand. I think he's down to 4 or 5 cards in hand. We'll go back up to probably 6 or 7 after this double draw phase. And then just go, yep, what do I do now? The game plan will probably be, okay, we swing into everything for 10s, get two cards out of hand. And then we go, okay, do I start swinging into leader yet? Is it time, or do I wait 1 more turn, get myself set up that slightly little bit more, and then start going for it?
For sure. You know what's crazy to think about? UP Luffy would probably still be a very strong deck if the leader would just rearrange the top 5. You know, maybe like let it rearrange top 5 from earlier point in the game. But the fact that it gets to draw the card as well is kind of crazy to think about. Just you get so much value out of it. We're seeing a bunch of 10Ks come into the Luffy Taros here, and there's definitely just going to be a 6K swing into the Frankie. Nick with 2 cards in hand, but he knows that Hubert has that Nami, and what's Nick going to do if he gets rid of the Uso Hachi? We see the 6 coming down into the Frankie. Sure, our Luffy's alive, but now losing that Uso Hachi, we don't have many ways to get enough swings through the 2 blockers, plus the 1 life, plus the 1 Don open. It's just a really tough spot for Nick to be in.
Yeah, 100%. We just really see Hubert keeping this 8-cost card in hand, just going, sure, if you're gonna keep your board alive, I'm just gonna keep on playing good cards. So 8-cost Kata, the poke plus block is like, sure, stacking 2Ks on top of the deck, just knowing, okay, I'm gonna draw into these anyway. Plus, if I don't need to, I get a guaranteed pull off my top 5 next turn.
Sure, we see the Sanji Putty come down, the draw 1. Probably going to see a leader effect. And then Nick probably has to really think about what his win con is. He does have that 6-cost Luffy, and he knows he's not dying in 1 turn, right?
Yes.
He might die over the course of 2 turns, but he's not dying in 1 turn. Maybe he plays the 6-cost Luffy down, leaves it in active mode, and just goes to Hubert. This is my board state. You can do as much defense as you want. Can you survive my next turn? Obviously, he's still going to poke at 6k with his leader. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it might just get blocked by Katakuri, but if you do it at the start, maybe you threatening a punish with a Gamma Knife or something along those lines.
Yeah, 100%. I can definitely see, before you do anything, yeah, just come through with a 6 and go, okay, are you going to chump block me? Are you going to risk it? We do see that come through. Hubert going, hey, man, even if you do, I'm going to defend this, essentially.
For sure. Nick going, all right, you know what? I think I need it to get the pressure in. I'll swing. We see the Gum Gum Giant come out. Man, this purple Luffy decks are just crazy with their Gum Gum Giant. Obviously, GP struggles a little bit more with it because its Don is not as at 10 as safely as UP is. However, it is still such a strong card in all these purple Luffy leaders. We see the Merry-Go come down, protect the Gear 2. But Hubert is sitting on 1 life with 2 blockers, about to draw another 2 cards, finds another Gum Gum Giant, and is going, you know what, how am I going to do this? It's probably the Nami, it's probably the Gum Gum Giant for draw for turn, and it's the same thing he's been doing. It's, okay, I'm going to swing into your board. This time you're going to let your board die a little bit quicker because you only got that 1 card in hand, and then we'll get 2 cards into your life, and then I'm going to try and kill you next turn. Purely because if you swing twice with that Gear 2, that means you lose a life, go down to 2 life, which is not sustainable for Nick to survive another turn. We do see the Searcher event trigger. Nick probably eyeing off that second gear 2 going, I'm going to double gear 2. Nope, he goes for the Nami. He knows I need to search for something, probably a Usohachi or something like that. But this double Nami blockers coming down is just nasty. A draw 3 here, being able to put 2 cards at the top or bottom. That looks like there's no dead cards.
I don't think so. I think there's a Nanko Sanji, and that's the only non-counter card in his hand.
For sure, looks like we put the cards at the top deck. I believe he put 2 cards with counter because he wants to discard the Nanko Sanji off of the Gum Gum Giant, as well as going, you know, I want that Usohachi, right? I want that Usohachi. Eventually, it's the card I'm not going to counter with, so it's fine for it to be on the top of the deck, as it's my last choice for counter. And we're just going to Gum Gum into it. We see the Nami come down, look at top 5. I'm honestly not sure what Nick is looking for. I'm not sure if he knows what he's looking for at this point. The position he is in is quite dire. 3 life to 1, 3 blockers to none, and a bunch of big bodies.
Yeah, for 100%. It is interesting. I don't think he definitely doesn't think he can go for game this turn. Otherwise, you would either just not even bother grabbing the Usohachi, or not bother searching, or definitely grabbing the Usohachi there if that was your line to go for game.
For sure.
So I think he's kind of just trying to build up some defense potentially and just going, okay, you are not going to kill me next turn.
For sure. We see the merry
Either through mind games or through cards in hand, you're just not going to do it. Trust me.
Sure.
And then I'll go for it afterwards.
That top deck of Gum Gum Giant definitely helps Nick's defensive position. We'll use leader effect. We'll ditch 2 Don. We will get 2 back inactive as well as re-stand 2. We probably are going to see not much Don go onto Sanji Pudding because we most probably want them in active mode for at least another turn because we just need to kind of go in for it over 1 turn. We see the 6k poke come down. We'll see the block from the Katakuri. We might see some Don be attached to that Sanji Pudding, or maybe Nick going, you know what, no, this is a defense turn. We're playing defense for this turn, thinking whether or not to play that 6-cost Sanji blocker. I believe Nick has 1 too many Don to play it for 3. Looks like he has total 9
Yes.
Don
Yep.
to the 10. So just not enough to get it out. Looks like these players are in time, so we'll go through the 3 turns each. I don't think this game has 2 turns each for these players.
No, I think it's potentially over. I think, yeah, definitely Nicholas thinking he can survive, but just looking at Hubert's board, it just seems like if you just swing 8, 9, 9, and then Nicholas takes them all, like he's like, okay, well now 16, 6, 6. Like how I don't see, like it's gonna have to be some god draws from Nicholas to be able to survive through all that damage, and to potentially if Hubert does miss sequence, to potentially give him some easier attacks to get out of. We maybe see that, but definitely, yeah, interesting position to see what Nicholas does here, whether or not he does restand that Luffy, and whether or not he just doesn't swing with anything else here.
For sure. It looks like we see the Sanji Pudding swing come down. Hubert being very smart, going, I'm going to Gum Gum Giant at the start. So even if Nick wants to Don -2 with the Luffy, Hubert has 8 Don. Nick will go down to 7 Don. So he is not able to play the blocker Sanji once again. A rough position to be in. So no matter what Nick did, if he swung with the Luffy first and just Don minus straight away and restored it, Hubert's still going to use that Gum Gum, still going to deny the ability to play the 3-cost, well, the 6-cost for 3.
Yeah, 100%. So Nicholas just thinking through, okay, what do I do now? What are my numbers here? I can swing for 10-10 twice. I'd probably just swing for 8 and keep some Don open, at least threaten something. We'll use the effect to restand, take the life. Potentially then just saying, okay, this is safe for next turn. Going down to 0. Hubert going, I'm just going to end the game next turn. I think him going down to 0 there, he's like, yeah, I don't think there's much you can do to stop me now.
For sure. Kind of surprised he let a Nami die, if I'm being honest. Not going for the, you know, I want all 6 possible swings. But he's going, you know what, my 5 bigger body swings is probably enough to go for game. And if not, there's another Nami. I can play a defense for another turn. You're not getting through another 3 blockers if I swing at your board. Or if you counter out a couple of my small swings early, your board is 100% dead. So I'm just going to make it hard for you. We see the 8 come down. That's 2 cards out of Nick's hand if he wants to defend. Or the Gum Gum Giant. Not defending this makes it harder to live later on. Defending this probably means your board is dying.
Yeah, 100%. So if you defend this and I see why we see one more 9 going through the leader and go, okay, you're defending 2 of them. If you defend 2 of them, 100%, you go for board and go, okay, do something about it. If that doesn't happen, then yeah, we can see more swings just going through into Nicholas. At a certain point, you will be able to just do the math. It is a little bit harder because of these Gum Gum Giants and the variation of, well, they get to, if you thinking about a worst case scenario is really hard because it is a lot of counter if they do hit 2Ks off of these and discard dead cards. But you can definitely still do the math and go, okay, best case scenario, worst case scenario, what do I do and what are the outcomes?
For sure, Hubert going up. That one swing into life was enough. You've defended it. I am going for your board now. Seeing another 9K come down into that Luffy.
Oh, you're swinging at that. Okay, sorry.
Cool. So we see another 9K swing coming into this Luffy. Nick going, you know what, I probably have to defend this, right? I can use another Gum Gum. I can go down enough in Don and go for some sort of crazy hope win con, but
that's a lot of Don down.
That is a lot of Don down.
That is down to 3 Don to start the turn, I think, if he does use a second Gum Gum there. Only 5 on board. That is back up to 5 at the start of the turn. That is not a lot to even Don to try and end the game with at that point.
But you think right, it's down to 5, right? But then you got the 2 Sanji pudding, so it's actually down to 7 Don as well as the lead effect. So you're still playing with 9 Don Nickton, which is the insane part about GP Luffy, right? Like, he's happy, I'm going down to 3 Don, but I still have 9 Don. Unfortunately, it does mean cards effects such as that Uso Hachi, which he has in hand, will be unplayable because he only has the 5 Don. But that last swing into the Luffy was able to get it down. We see the Nami coming down for 5. Hubert being super happy to tap out, right? He doesn't have any events, so he doesn't need to kind of bluff them because he has those 2 Nami blockers, being able to block the swing from both the Sanji Puddings as well as the leader.
Forgetting to restand the Big Mums there. Very, very rough when that happens. You do choose up to 2, so you can choose the 0 if you do miss that timing. It's unfortunate that you've just chosen 0. You no longer get to restand anything. Saying that he does still have the 2 Namis, there is only 3 attacks on board. And then if you do have these, if he does have another Rush Luffy in hand, that comes down, taps all 6, you'll then gain the 4 back, and then if it's essentially the swings are then what 6, 7, 9, 9. It's
still not very big enough. You probably can't even do that. You probably have to go into some 8s to split the Don out. And that Usos Hachi that Nick has in hand is not live, so we can't even rest one of the Namis and go that way. Looking at Hubert's hand, even though he forgot to restand the category blockers, obviously he's in a comfortable position, which is probably why he forgot to restand, a little bit too relaxing. But this will probably be the last time he makes that mistake. He's probably going, that should have happened. At least it's happening in a spot that I am in a super comfortable position. Something like 7 cards in hand. Each of them is just a 2 and or so each 8K swing is a 2 and a 1 away. It looks like Nick is saying that the Rush Luffy was not enough. I'll see another 2 and a 1 come down. And Nick going, well, I have 1 swing and he has 2 blockers. I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah. I think it's respectable to let your opponent win the game sometimes. So yeah, we just see the concede come through there from Nicholas. He knows there's really nothing he can do there, unfortunately.
Sure, but a very well played game from both these players. Hubert being able to go 2-0 in this first round, continuing his undefeated streak. He's currently 11-0 in this tournament. And for those of you who watched Sydney Regionals last year, Hubert was able to take out the event going 8-0 in Swiss into 8-0 in Top Cut. So over our last 2 Sydney Regionals, Hubert is now up to 27-0. Playing super, super well. So that was a great game. Let's quickly bring it back to the booth. All right, so Hubert was able to win that. He got some great prizes in the Serial Ace as well as the top 8 Sanji. Nicholas, unfortunately, coming a little bit short, but he still gets that really cool top 16. Zoro, what do you think of the game, Kev?
That was crazy. I think that was a showcase of what can happen when blue-purple is played to the highest level, the micro decisions that were made, the decisions of where to put cards. Sometimes, like looking at the top 5 and the bottom decking, you don't realize how impactful that can be and the choices that were made along the way. Nicholas, unfortunately, missing that Luffy both games. He just never really got the ball rolling like he really wanted to. Had a way better chance at it the second game, had the board full of Luffy Taros, had these AK swings, but just couldn't get there in the end. Just was missing that final push for those couple of turns, and unfortunately, he fell short.
Yeah, for sure. It was really close. Being able to see the UP Luffy get that triple ramp off game 1 was crazy. It shows the absolute power level of the deck. Having a quick look at the bracket, Hubert moving on to top 8, playing against the winner of Jonathan and Zixuan, which looks like it was Zixuan. We do have the top 8. Leo winning his game, as well as Minky, Jaden, Nice. We still have one game undecided, but this is what looks like to be the top 8 bracket. We will take a quick break as top 8 will get started very soon.